Hey, what's up, Beat family? Alan and Jennifer back with another video about life, marriage, and family. And you may recall a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity not to interview, but to have a conversation with my wife about women working outside of the home. And so today she has the opportunity to ask me from a male perspective about men working, overworking, workaholics, and how that can have an effect on the home.
Yes, thank you all for submitting your questions. We saw all of the requests, and most of them centered around men working, overworking, not working enough. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So this is going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit here and let you.
I love interviewing you. But let's talk about this, because I know that this is definitely something that a lot of people are having conversations about, especially with the change of the pandemic. And so maybe we should start first with just defining workaholic. And how would you say a man, how does he know if he's a workaholic?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for a long time, I tried to deny that I was, a workaholic, but I think really after thinking through some of these things, it became pretty clear that this is something that I really, really struggle with, specifically whenever you really do genuinely enjoy your work, which is what I love doing. I love waking up every day, making videos, creating content. It's awesome. So here's some ways that you can look at to see if this is something that you are struggling with. Number one, you consistently make excuses for your work, for long hours for work. So whenever somebody in the family starts asking you, hey, are you able to do this? It's always like, well, no, the reason why I worked this long is because I had to get this paper, or I had to get this thing, or I had to do that, or I had to finish this emails. And you're consistently finding yourself making excuses, right? Another sign is that you just find it difficult to relax. Like, it is really difficult for you to really unplug and do nothing. And you feel like when you're not doing nothing, or when you are doing nothing, that you're really doing nothing, if that makes any sense, right? Like, you don't value relaxation as actually something valuable for you. It's just a waste of time. Another one is that you refuse to delegate your work, right? So there's ways that you could actually work less if you trusted or entrusted your work to other people, but you just feel like you have to do it all by yourself because you don't trust other people, which then creates the workaholic, right? Maybe another one, you seem preoccupied during conversations, right? People are having conversations with you, but maybe you're looking at your phone, you're checking your email, trying to get back to people. You're doing all these different things because your mind is really on work, and not where it needs to be. And then there's a whole bunch more, but I'll just give you another one. Forgetting important dates or events. And this is a real big sign when you just start to be like, man, I forgot your birthday, or I forgot the kids had a game, or I forgot I was supposed to be here. That is a really, really huge sign. And the last one is when you just find yourself irritable, impatient, you're struggling with just spending time with your family and things like that. Those are all huge signs of you working too much.
Yeah, and I think that would define a workaholic. And so is it safe to say that you can be a workaholic, and that might not be a bad thing? I was very attracted to Alan's work ethic when we met, when we were dating. I knew immediately when we were dating that we had a similar mindset when it came to work. And so being driven is not a bad thing. Working is not a bad thing. But all of those things that you listed could be where it turns unhealthy. And so let's talk about how your workaholic, it just sounds like such a negative connotation, but it can be. How has your workaholic issues affected our family?
Yeah.
And our marriage?
Yeah. So, I mean, that one hits home for me, no pun intended, because, so just a little bit about me, guys. I grew up in a home where it was a single parent home. My dad was always active in my life, and he still is to this day, but he wasn't in the home because my parents got divorced. And so I always grew up priding myself in wanting to make sure that I was that present dad, that present father, that loving father, that attentive husband. And the more and more I got into the ministry and just enjoyed what I was doing, I found myself more and more drawn to that, to where sometimes, and even more recently of late, I find myself like stealing time away from my family because, hey, I got to get this beat video out. And it's hard because, it's hard for a wife to be like, well, you need to say no to ministry. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, when I come up with an excuse as to why I can't do this or can't do that, it's always ministry related, which is a good thing.
It's a good
right?
thing.
Yes.
And we do ministry together, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. So basically the way it's hurt our family is that it's taken away from time that I should be spending with the kids and also with my wife, because when the kids go to sleep, that's our time. But Absolutely. If I'm like getting the kids down to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm going to go upstairs and finish the rest of my work from 10 o'clock until whenever, then my wife is in bed by herself and we haven't connected and spent any time.
And that's a good point as we talk about work being a good thing and how just that alone can sometimes not only pull you away from the family, but I think it's a part, men are supposed to provide for their family. That is a part of your calling. And so how do you balance that call to work and provide as a man and still be present for your family?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, guys, this comes down to really, really setting healthy boundaries. And my wife has had to help me with this. And so it might be something like, in order to make sure that you spend time with the kids, you are going to take them to school every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just to make sure that they know that dad takes me to school, right? It could be that after 5 o'clock, you make up your mind that you are going to completely detach yourself from work. And that includes putting your phone maybe in a different room if you have to, because if your phone is close to you and you see that there's emails that you need to respond to, text messages, Slack messages, and things like that, you're going to be very prone to want to respond to those things. And your kids are going to notice that, wow, dad is not paying attention to us. Absolutely. And that's really convicting sometimes whenever my son has been asking me questions and I'm sitting up there like this and he's like, Daddy. And he's like, and even one day my daughter was like, Daddy, get off of your phone and talk to me. And I was like, man, that broke my heart. So I had to put my phone down and to make sure that I was present. So really just setting those healthy boundaries.
Right. And another boundary that is helpful is the phone boundary, but not just saying I'm not going to get on my phone. We've done this because there's times where he'll have a long day of work and he'll be downstairs on the chair or in the bed, but we're still consuming. Yeah. And so we have set some limitations on just screen time. That way, after a certain time, the screen goes dark. Certain apps don't show up. And that way you're not distracted by that email that comes in that pulls your attention instead of connecting with your spouse. Or you are distracted by what you're seeing on social media instead of playing with your kids that are right in front of you. So those are some boundaries that we have set as a family that has helped. Mm-hmm. And so just to kind of, to bring this full circle, because I know we can't solve all the problems in one video, but this is obviously something that maybe mostly women submitted to help with their workaholic husbands is, what are some practical things that you can leave men with just to ensure that their priorities are in order?
Yeah. So, once again, really setting those real healthy boundaries, but not just setting them, but really adhering to them, because it's easy to set those boundaries, but really adhering to those things. And also, I would say putting it on your calendar, because we know that anything that's on your calendar is something that you're more than likely going to follow. So like schedule this family time in, right? Schedule it in, schedule time in with your wife. Right. And then another thing I would say would be weekends. Like make up in your mind that you are not going to do work on the weekends unless it is extremely important. Because if you're anything like us and we have young kids, listen, our kids are in school for 8 hours a day and someone else is spending 8 hours a day with them. So at most on a good day, I might get 2 hours a day with my kids. So on the weekends, that's gravy time. That's family time. That's time to shut down. That is time to turn things off, because that gives me a time to spend 8 hours with my kids and 8 hours on Sunday and 8 hours on Saturday. So those are a couple things that I would say. But the biggest thing is to realize that every moment matters. Take advantage of every single moment with your kids. My wife has been teaching me that, even if it's a day where you work a whole lot and you may not be able to spend 2 hours with your kids or 1 hour with your kids, just make the moments that you spend with them really, really count. Because a lot of times with our kids, they don't need a whole lot. They just need to know that dad is there and dad loves them and dad cares for them.
And for mothers, for wives, when you see your husbands making an attempt to do this, celebrate him. Let him know, hey, I appreciate it when you took the kids to practice. Hey, it means a lot that you took the kids to school. They might see that as a task, but it's also an opportunity to connect. And so when you see them making an effort, celebrate them for that, because they might not realize that that's an effort. Another thing that I will say, and this is just kind of to wrap it up, is to keep the main thing, right? So
I learned that from my dad.
In the spirit of priorities, there is no work that should ever pull you so far away from our priorities. And that is God, your spouse, your children, your work. After God, we know certain priorities and responsibilities that we have. And so work never, same thing. It shouldn't be an excuse to say, I don't have time to spend with God because I'm working too much. I don't have time to spend with my spouse or meet the needs or desires of my spouse because I'm working too much. And for women, if you find yourself in that situation, we recorded a video about that where Alan interviewed me about just how work did that exact thing, was pull me away from my family. And so keep the main thing. And men, we know you are called to provide, you're called to lead. We need your leadership and your stewardness and your protection over our families. It's when it becomes unhealthy and deemed as workaholic that you've got to get back to your priorities.
Yeah. And the last thing I would say, guys, is, we only get one shot at raising our kids. My dad taught me this. He said, you give your kids two things, roots and wings, right? You give them roots, all the foundational stuff that you teach them, and then you give them wings and you send them off and they fly, and that's it. They're out of the nest, right? So we don't want to have any regrets later. We know we're not going to be perfect dads, but we don't want to get to the point where we say, man, I wish I would have spent more time, because at the end of the day, are you going to remember all the emails and different things that you had to, respond to? What's going to be more important 20 years from now? That your kids saw you, spent time with you, right? Like that you invested in their lives, or you got these emails done, right? So, matter of fact, I can remember, I think it was Billy Graham, who basically said that his biggest regret in life was that he was not a present father, because he was always out there ministering to the masses, ministering to the thousands, and doing these crusades and all these different things. But he was always on the road traveling, leaving his kids at home. And so, as I close, guys, as you're trying to conquer the world, as you're trying to move up the corporate ladder, as you're trying to get that next promotion, just keep in mind that our ministries at home are the most important ministry that we really could to invest our time with. And we only get one shot. Our kids are already 5 and 4 years old.
And it already seems like time has
It feels like it just went just like that fast. I know every parent out there who probably has kids that just left home, you're saying the same thing. Like, yeah, it goes fast. So guys, just make every moment count, and remember that parenting is the one thing that you cannot delegate. Somebody taught me that lesson. You can delegate a lot of things, but being a father is the one thing that you cannot delegate.
Yes. And so, and you are doing a good job. You are doing a good job. It is definitely something that as wives, we can always encourage our spouses that they're doing a good job. They're doing the best that they can. And so we hope you enjoyed this Keeping It Real with the Parrs dialogue. And if you have some more topics or ideas for questions that you would like us to answer, topics you'd want us to answer, I said that twice, but that's okay. You get it. You know what to do. We're
doing this on the fly, y'all. We just having fun.
You know what to do. Just drop it in the comments, and we will take a look at them, and we look forward to opening up and just discussing relevant, godly topics with
Yeah.
you all.
Yeah. Thanks so much, you all. We'll see you all in another video with Keeping It Real with the Parrs.
With the Parrs.
Bye for now.